Okay. Right, we'll call the meeting of the Stewart Water Commissioners August 14th order at 5:45 p.m. We have all three commissioners here tonight, David Sherbuck, Mark Robinson, and myself, Scott Horsley. And we will start the agenda with any public comment. Anybody like to? Good evening.
Yeah, I have some things to say that first of the things that you have on your agenda. Well, maybe a general thing that I'll. Have the commissioners given any thought yet to citing a water treatment plant or maintenance plant in that direction? And you've got an estimate cost of what a plant would run and where the funds would come from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
We have had some discussions in the past several times about potential water treatment, including both iron and manganese, as well as PFAS. The two which are slightly different treatment systems, of course, but we have discussed that. We've had some, in fact, we have an engineering firm that has a report and proposal on the iron manganese, and then Chris and I have talked about the PFAS plant recently, correct, and gotten some direction on that. So yeah, we certainly have. Yep.
So you have an engineering report that's available at this point, or?
On the iron and manganese, we do have an engineering report, which is at least a couple years old.
We're going on now, probably, it's
More than
probably 9 years old at this
that
point.
old?
I would, no,
Okay.
5 years.
5 years, let's call it 5 years on the iron and manganese. We do
Yeah.
not have a report on the PFAS, although we've talked about it with our
Correct.
consulting.
So what's the estimated cost of the plant?
It was 12 to 18,000, 18 million, somewhere in there. I think we're estimating, we can probably at this point couldn't do it for less than 20 million. And my point was that, let's wait and see where the state is in terms of subsidies. And so I think a lot of water suppliers are going to need to put these plants together. And the state's going to have to find a way to fund a lot of it.
And I'll just add, this is why we have the source water protection on our agenda on a regular basis, because there's all kinds of documentation across the United States. It's much less expensive to do source water protection than it is to treatment. And right now, we're below the limits. So if we plan ahead and do the source water protection, we can probably cut the costs at least in half, maybe by 90%. So I, for one, am for that. And that's what we're investing our time in. We'd like not to spend the money to do the treatment. I mean, there's two schools of thought. One is manage your watershed, protect it, is what New York City did. They saved a ton of money. The other one is let everything go to hell and hire an engineering firm and build a treatment plant. And you can do that if you don't mind spending a ton of money.
I don't agree with letting everything go to hell, but.
Neither do I.
Also, step out of the road if I see a Mack truck and head on.
Yeah.
And I think the Mack truck is there. And I think thinking about this and getting plans in place isn't a bad idea. Even if you don't pull the trigger and say we're gonna build a plant tomorrow, having the money available and the funding sources for that.
Yeah.
And having the plans in place is a good idea. I don't think our water quality is gonna get any better by itself.
But I think to your point, we invest in money soon in source water protection, which I think is your suggestion. Let's get on it now, right? The Mack truck is the pollution, right? And if we want to spend less money, we could do the source water protection. If we want to spend more money, we could just wait and do the treatment. So I think we're in agreement. Let's address it now before there's a big problem. And I think that's a great point.
I think we're partially in agreement. I don't agree that we should be spending money on upgrading septic systems for people, because I don't think that's going to do much, if anything, for our nitrate load. I think with 80 housing add-ons, you see the house on Oyster now.
Yeah.
If anything, we're going to be putting more sewage in the ground.
Yeah.
So you know, and I don't think that's a major source of our nitrate. I mean, road runoff, fertilizer, that was some, and that's what's screwed up our creeks and the rest of the area.
No, it's not septic, it's the moving that the majority is from septic.
Yeah, if you read the literature,
I haven't,
you know, I've been looking at the literature. And, you know, we're permitted for a certain level of stuff. But that kind of goes out the window, with baby housing, and maybe that will be the major source. But right now, I think our major source for our bays and estuaries are, road garden and fertilizer on, at least that's what the literature I've been looking at.
I don't think we agree with that. I think it's always been proven to be septic systems, 85% nitrogen source on the Cape is from septic systems.
Okay.
Golf courses, you know, runoff, storm drains, boats, all sorts of other things, but they're such a small percentage compared to septic systems.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, we have Professor Horsley, the national experts on this question, so I defer to him, but.
Well, I was gonna say, I think your suggestion is a good one. I think we need to do two things. We need to start planning potentially for treatment plants, and we are doing that. Good point, done, box checked. And I think more importantly, we're trying to avoid that cost, because I think the taxpayers would rather spend less money than more money. And we're looking at a number of alternatives, not just septic system upgrades, but as I'm gonna report to the board tonight, I had a conversation with the DPW, and we are looking at their CWMP. The questions with the CWMP and sewering are, how does the town pay for it, and when do they get to it?
Well,
There's two schools of thought about it. And so my point is, we are looking at source water protection, both septic upgrades and sewering, and we are looking at treatment, so I think your points are well taken. And I think we are doing that, and we're gonna continue to do that, and
I think Vic has a good point though about, so we might want to take the treatment plant study and dust it off. And maybe ask, Tata
Tate and Howard.
to look at what would be, is there a module that you can add onto it for PFAS?
And we,
How
we
does
did
that-
talk about that, there is carbon filtration.
Correct, yeah.
Chris and I talked.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, sodium, there's no treatment for
No.
sodium,
No,
so we still have that hanging out.
I think it's a great suggestion, and again, we are doing it, so.
yeah,
We're on track, but again, we're doing what you're suggesting and better. If your suggestion is plan for treatment, we're doing that, and we're trying to plan for, maybe we don't need treatment. So we're doing both, and we're gonna keep, my view is we're gonna keep doing that, we have both on the agenda. Chris and I will keep speaking with.
Chris has told us that,
consultants.
you know, I had the crazy idea that. COMM and Katuitt could share a water treatment plant. Doesn't make sense for little Katuitt to have its own
Yeah,
water treatment
yeah.
plant, but Chris says there are some logistical issues with that. But I just still think that it's something that should be examined. You know, we're gonna have a plant, yes, it's $20 million, now we're gonna have to hire, how many? 3 to 5 people to run it? And Com's gonna hire 3 to 5 people to run theirs. I don't think that makes any sense to me, but
We're gonna try to stay on the front of it, keep the cost. I think that's what,
what's the, tell you about when sewers will arrive and.
yeah, we're gonna talk about,
we actually, if we're gonna have that on the agenda, if you can hang in here a little bit, we'll get to that. And I think you'll be interested in that, so it's on the agenda, but, any other public comment? Carol, all right, well, please stay with us. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you. We love people
so
coming.
Scott, Vic was the commissioner.
I know,
before
I
me.
know.
I took his-
Huh?
Will you take
he
his side?
served in my.
Oh, I know. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Please, let's continue.
just,
Yeah,
if you guys have some questions, really, if you want me to up with something on Taylor Howard, I'm actually meeting with the guy on Thursday morning. To talk, him and one of the VPs over there, so,
yeah, my suggestion, Chris, is to continue the conversation we already had. I don't think we need a design at this point,
I don't think so either.
but I think we can get cost estimates.
Yeah.
Based upon, you know, what we're seeing in other locations, just so we can know what those
And
are.
ask him where he thinks the subsidies would be. I mean, the
Yeah,
state, the
yeah.
feds, they must have some flu. You know, a lot of this ARPA money is probably gonna be drying up soon, but.
Yeah, yeah. Let me move on to the minutes. Can I look at the minutes? I hope you gentlemen have as well.
I guess rather than look fine to me.
I
move
have
to
a
approve.
motion.
Second.
A second?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Copy for you to sign.
I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the water quality report, and the superintendent report, Chris.
Sure. Water quality report, all bacteria samples came back negative. I know I did bring up last time that we were gonna have some sodium. I have the routine sample sodiums, but I don't have the raw and the tanks right now. I do expect them, they usually give them to us when they bill us. They got a new billing system over there. And that's how we've been getting, I've been getting the results, she's been getting the bill. So they come at the same time, so I don't have anything, but I can tell you the ones that were there. Station 3 was around 17, I think, and station 2 was 20. Other than that, we had station 5 and 4 at 27, and I think it was station 1 was 23.
They were up.
Yeah, they were up a little high, but it seems to be, it's, you wouldn't think so in the summertime, they would be high, but because we're drawing a little more water, I think, in the natural flow of the water, it's by the time that road salt gets to us, it's about done. So it travels, it takes a while, so when you know,
Yep.
you could tell me how much quicker it travels underground than I can.
All of
Yeah.
it.
They were-
Right.
Okay,
So that's what, we did test today for perchlorate. Did our secondaries and our inorganics today. Also went around and did some PFAS sampling for litigation reasons. It's just raw water samples that I sent off to a lab. I was requested from our attorneys to go out and get some, so we did that this morning too.
and where were those taken?
They were taken at the stations where I was sent to the Eurofins.
All 5?
Yeah, all 5, yeah.
Okay, raw water sample. Good. When do you expect we'll have those results, Chris?
I expect those to come back pretty quick.
Okay.
Probably by the next, because they want that, they're at the point now where, I'll get into it now, it doesn't really, it's gonna be coming up, that they've had a couple people settle. And this is kind of like seeing where, how big a piece of pie you get. You know, from it and everything else, so they want to get a final and something else just to compare with what we already had. I did send them the last results we did also, but that was just the 2 stations that we were supposed to do.
Okay.
With the state.
Could I ask you if you could email those around and we get them as opposed to waiting? for the
Sure,
next
yeah.
meeting? 'Cause I think
Yeah.
we're really interested to see how those come back.
Sure. Yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Let's see. All right, I'll read my report a little more here. In July of 2022, we pumped 41,514,000 gallons of water. In July of 2023, we pumped 27,172,000 gallons of water. For a difference of 14,345,000 less than last year.
Starting to be significant.
I think it's, yeah, last month we had, I think, what was it, almost 4 million difference less?
2,405,000.
Okay. And I looked back into my notes. This is in the last 19 years, the 3rd lowest it's ever been in the last 19 years. If you want to know, this was 27 million. Back in 96, we had 23 million. And back in 2009, we had 21 million. Other than that, it was higher than this in the last 19 years. So that's quite a significant. I said, well, maybe it's the rain.
I was gonna ask you, what was the rainfall in July?
In July of 22, there was only 0.33 inches of water. So that's when we were in the dead drought last year.
Yep.
So there was a little more going on. But this year we had 1.82. So that's not a lot of rain really compared to, you know, years past and everything else.
It's
So
more than last
but it
year.
is much more than last
We
year.
had more rain and less pumping.
Correct.
Okay. And what are we hearing from Jen? I know you get phone calls from people about this with private wells and whatnot.
More and more and more.
More and more and more.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially so when we did the readings at the end of June, I was contacting people if their usage was off. and said, geez, is your meter stuck? And they said, no, I put in a private irrigation well,
yeah.
or I put one in, it's not connected yet, but it's,
So it sounds like maybe our water rate changes are having an effect.
Yes, and even in June, I looked back just to see, because June seemed a little low to me also.
Yeah.
And it's been 10 years since we had something that low in June.
Okay.
So, yeah,
And Jen, I don't know if this is a good time or not, but last time we were talking about one particular account where we had an adjustment. Any updates on that? Or are you gonna get to that later?
no update on it. I have not heard from them. They have not yet paid their bill. 2 more weeks.
right.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, just a little bit under association news, not a lot going on the last couple of weeks from. Nothing really from Barnstable County. New England Water Works is still throwing, get a conference coming up in Newport, I believe, and they're offering up many classes. Mass Water Works the same, they throw out their newsletter, hasn't come out since the last one I had, so I'll forward it when it does. And still offering many classes, and Mass Water, Rural the same way. And they have what they call a trifecta coming up in September, where they have half a day of classes and they have a little barbecue afterwards, and they do a water tasting, which if you win, you get put into the National Rural Water Association and everything. I thought about doing it, but I got the week off before, so I said I really can't take that off, then take another couple days after that to head that way. I asked a couple of the guys, they wanted to do it, and they really didn't want to travel.
Where's that?
That is in Western Mass, not Greenfield, around Greenfield area. They're out of, not Hadley, the whole area right there, right around UMass. I only know that, that's my dog. All right, we did put in 2 new water services. Thank you, Frank McCourt. Added a couple new ones over there. And we did have one leak down in Tuit, Clamshell Cove, yeah, to a Cove Road area. We had a 1-inch copper pipe, burst a couple holes in it and took the road right out. I mean, it was something else. It was up a good 1.5 feet. We thought we had like a main leak or something at the point at the time, but because there was so much pressure underneath it, but it was just such strong, tar that it just, and when it went, it finally bubbled up and everything else.
That was how they found it. They were like, what's that bump in the road?
Yeah.
They didn't recognize the bump in the road.
So when we waited, slowly the water started coming out, then it started running down the road, and they got to see the whole workings going on at once. As I did tell you before, next month will be the cleaning of West Street. And I did just mention about the PFAS litigation and where we will out with it and everything else.
So that's the cleaning of the inside of the tank.
Correct. And to let you know, when we did do Santuit Road, after we got a big windstorm, everything got shaken up. I always get a phone call from the lady down the street that she had dirty water. We had a heck of a storm the other day with tornadoes coming through, and I didn't get a phone call. So I'm pretty sure that was the problem, was that it was just the mud that's in the bottom of the tanks getting shaken up. Because those tanks do move a tiny bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's what I got.
Thanks, Chris.
No problem.
Any questions for Chris on the superintendent's report?
Well, I still go back to the pumpage, month by month, year by year. So, if you look at July, we're down a lot from last year. Not a whole lot down from the year before, 21. And 22 is not much different than 20 or 19. So, I mean, I still think that it's still too early to tell a real trend. I do think that we're having some impact with both the irrigation policy and the rate changes, but I still think it's it'd be a wonderful computer model to plug in the rainfall statistics and try to match it with these things, but the good news is it's not continuing to go up. And the fact that it's come down some this year overall, certainly, I think is only a good thing. And so
Yeah.
whatever we're doing, we're not doing something wrong, we're doing something right. And maybe nature is helping, but I have to think that your pumps aren't cranking quite so hard every morning.
No, they're doing much better, yeah, and even with this rain, I mean, our wells, it's. Drought is what tells us when we go, the rainfall is why we go into drought, and the drought is running us now, doesn't matter how much water we have in the ground, if it's been dry, we're regulated now through drought. So, there's not much you could do, even if it stopped raining tomorrow, our wells might be fine. When they go for a month, if they go for a month, they might say, okay, we're going back into a mild drought. I can't do anything about it, just tell everybody, hey, we're in a mild drought.
Well, Jen, I guess I think that's a good point, and, about the rainfall, my sense is we are making progress with regarding the policies and rate changes, so Jen, I would just ask you, and again, you do phenomenal work here, but if there's a way to track the rainfall on a monthly basis on a graph, which makes it a little more complicated, that would be helpful.
Yeah, because it's 5 years worth of data they only.
I know, right. And so just maybe, the other one would be, I know you are sort of unofficially keeping track of how many people are putting these wells, private wells. If there's a way to document that in any way, that would be helpful. But again, maybe this is.
Yeah, that's not in a trackable, like I put a note in their record, there's no
yeah,
trackable field that I
Right,
can run a
right.
report off of, but.
Or if the assessor has a field on the property cards.
They are supposed to get a permit from the Board of Health to put in a private well, but
I
don't
thought
think
so too, but they're not, there is a little bit of a clause there that if they don't pump over so many
Yes.
gallons a minute.
Yeah.
They don't have to go pull the permit.
Right.
So they don't have to register it, so there is, and this is what a lot of the well companies are saying to them, oh, you're not gonna be pumping over 15 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
So,
I'll just keep it in the back of your mind, because those are the two other factors that probably do go into this that we talk about, but we don't have any real data on. But certainly we're heading in the right direction here, so that's good news. Let's keep moving here. We have a lot on the agenda. Old business, the next thing we have is the school subcommittee, and David, we have your name next to this. You want to start us off?
So in the June Prudential Committee meeting, they asked fire commissioners and water commissioners to come up with a point of view for tomorrow's meeting of the Civic Association on the school use. After our meeting, I met with Jen and with Chris at the department, and we talked about what regulations are in effect for Zone 2, where the school lies, and we defaulted to 310 CMR 22 A and B, which lays out in some detail. Most of the discussion that we had was about relocation of the water department, both wholesale, or just leave 28 and pick up and move to the school, and what would be entailed. And the second was a split of moving some offices over there, but keeping the chemical storage and so-called industrial use that's now taking place there. After that, I drafted up the statement with sort of the intent that you as chairman might deliver it tomorrow night as a prelude to the discussion of what can and can't happen. It's neutral on the matter of the demolition. I didn't feel that that's not ours to say. But other than defaulting to the state code, I think the only opinions in there that I inserted was that if the building is demolished, that no debris be buried on site. There had been some discussion of that in one of the school subcommittee meetings in the past, but I don't think that it was going to go forward. And then the other was to incorporate, if they retain the building and they do upgrades to the septic,
Yes.
they'll be asked if they go with an IA, and also look at a heating plant that doesn't involve heating oil storage on premises. That's about it. I think you both had a chance to
Yeah, I thought
review.
it was excellent. We covered all the major issues. And it's not up to us, as you say, to say yay or nay to the building, I would like to ask Chris about, again, to reiterate his concerns about moving the office.
I
Do you think
believe,
this is a fair statement or not?
yes, I do, as I've said, I mean, you know. The stuff that we have there, we built that back building's built just to do what it does. Yeah, it has the thing on the sides with the eye washes and the shower and safety reasons and everything else. But that building was put there and built to do what we do now. That building at the time, I think, cost, this is 20 years ago, 200 something $1,000 to build. I don't know what it would cost to do it again over there.
You're talking about the building in the back.
Correct.
So maybe you can explain a little bit with the Lime Slurry building.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the lime slurry,
Yeah.
yeah, but the way we have, it's a pre-mix thing, then we truck it out and everything else, so. That would have to stay where it is, you know, the only thing we could move is offices. Really, because everything else between chemical storage and everything else has containment there, has what we want. I can't see moving anything else. In a way that would be cost worthy. You know, I think it would cost more money to have everything moved over, so. Yeah, it's, like I said, the only thing that I could ever say is if you wanted to put an office over there and put it. I would have to bring her with me to do it because I rely on Jen for a lot of stuff also, and she's the office manager, so. She runs the office there and that's where all the stuff is, that's where the SCADA system goes into. All that fiber optics that we paid all that money to bring into. We'd have to move that over there also, and that's our personal RAM that we have, so we'd have to get our own personal stuff brought over. So we have our own fiber itself that goes through there for the SCADA system and the security system, the cameras and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's just not cost worthy to do it.
Does the district own that building?
Yes, that and I think it's behind us is 26 acres or 52, it's either there, I think it's 52 acres there. Behind there, it goes to the pond and runs all the way over to where the tank is. So we own from Newtown Road around with the front lots being
Right.
on 28, everything is.
So is the SCADA cable or fiber optic, whatever it is, it must be at the, is it at the Main Street? I'm sorry, the West Street Tower as well?
There is some there, yes. it's
So that's
brought up.
right next to the school. Running it from there to the school wouldn't be very far.
No, I don't believe, I believe you could put it in there, yeah, if you had to do it, you could run it from the pole over, it would have to go pole to pole. Brought up, I think. Unless we did, I mean, it would have, we could
I
probably.
guess my point is you don't have to run it from the Route 28 office all the way to
No.
the school.
No, it would have,
Tap into it
no, you'd have to
somewhere
tap off of something over there and have the guys come in and figure out how to run that, continue that wire beyond to do it.
Well, I guess one thought I had as a follow-up to, Commissioner Robinson is that, you know, certainly respect your opinion on this in terms of what makes the most sense. Depending on what happens tomorrow night, if one potential outcome is we need more time to study all the alternatives.
Yeah.
Which frankly, that's my own perspective on this, but again, it's not up to us, we'll see what happens, but if we do have more time. I'm wondering if it makes sense to drill down a little more detail and find out about some costs.
Yeah,
because
we could always do that, bring somebody in to look at it and see what it would cost and move different things.
And then just to finish that, if we did move that, and if the district does own that building, would that be something that we could then sell to finance the move potentially?
Well, you had somebody moving in next to a lime batching facility.
Actually, that's the other question I have is the line batching. Tell me again why that could not be moved or should not be moved?
It's just the price to move it,
Cost.
and the cost of moving it and you'd have to put it so it has containment, like. We have, I think it's almost a 2,000 gallon tank in the ground there that's buried down, you know, so far. So it would take the amount that we have in there if it was to ever break. And
So
so
if it's a cost issue, I guess my
Correct.
thought would be, this could be part of, if we have more time. I think what you've done so far is great, you know, in terms of an initial
And
assessment.
and when those things come, when we get a delivery, we get an 18-wheeler
yeah.
with 12 over 1,600-pound sacks of lime.
Loading dock,
That's gonna be driving down, over there and it have to be backed up. We have to put a loading dock and it
hydraulics.
has to be raised
Yeah.
at that point and everything. So, yeah, it's a lot of.
I mean, my only thought is this is a once in generational opportunity, option, I should say, with this building. So we
It's-
collectively should give it some good thought before we.
If you're thinking about selling over there, you couldn't sell anything on that property really because it still has
Yeah.
a well field on.
Understand.
It might be inactive right now. We've never discontinued it, but there is a well
Permitted well.
permitted well on that
You
property.
still
Yes.
have a water management act permit on that well?
It's not decommissioned, it's just inactive.
Correct.
right?
It's inactive. I don't know if there's a permit on it, but
Okay.
it's just, and I don't know if the state would ever say to us, you know what, if you guys need anything, you're gonna have to redo that
Well, that's a
well.
good
Because I
point.
think it was, at the time, I was trying to read back on it a little bit the other day, but finding notes on it can be.
Well, my thought would be, we'll see how things go tomorrow night. If we
Okay.
have more time to analyze this option of the school, then maybe we can bring it back for further discussion
Well,
here.
And the other point is that we did vote $200,000 to have the district study a lot of this stuff, and then
Correct.
the study's never been done.
To my knowledge,
So we could help inform the scope of work for that study, which
I think the district meeting vote was to do that, correct?
Yeah.
So apparently,
Yeah.
the district has not responded to the.
They were too
district's vote.
busy figuring out how to get it from the town.
And it may be because they wanted to wait until the transaction, but that vote's still valid, right? The money's there and then the people said, let's do the study.
Yeah.
So I guess tomorrow night we'll hear more about that,
I
but
mean, maybe that's something you could say as an addendum to this
Yes.
memo.
Yeah.
Is that as the district spends that money on a feasibility report,
it could be part of that.
we would like to be involved in scoping it.
Sure, makes sense. Okay, well, that's great. David, thank you very much for your research on this, and this is very well done. Appreciate the opportunity to comment, and I think I'm comfortable. I don't know if we need a vote or not to
No, I think we should. We should
submit
vote.
this, so I guess I'd take a motion to see if this is official report, if you will, from the water commissioners to the Prudential Committee.
Oh, and
regarding
to the
schools.
district.
To the district,
You have to read it in minutes.
I'm sorry,
You have to read it in minutes, you're voting on it. I don't know.
I mean, it's tonight or tomorrow night? Tonight. Oh, do we have to read it like?
I don't know.
No,
I
no,
don't
we'll
think
just,
so.
we have copies of it here. They're
Right.
available to the public.
We've discussed it, so it's an
We're
open. doc.
incorporating it by reference into the minutes.
Right. As far as tomorrow night goes, do you want hard copies of this for distribution? Is there a PowerPoint that we need to send to Carol?
I think we should have, well, how many, we don't know how many people are gonna show up. I mean, it's two options are to post it on our website or.
I would make 50,
Any thoughts,
I would make 50 copies.
either of you?
I would post it on the website, I would do it by the district website with the next meeting.
Yeah,
Maybe. And you can have copies that are available if you want to do that.
yeah.
No, I think we spent a lot of time, when I say we, I mean him.
Ted, you have any thoughts on that?
We should have copies, we should have
Yeah.
copies.
I'm sorry.
Vic,
Vic, I'm sorry. Vic, I'm sorry. Vic. Any thoughts? Okay,
But,
okay.
Can I ask a question about whatever it is you wrote and about what the current offices, are they ADA compliant? Is that?
No.
No,
No.
so it's not a proposal,
No,
neither is the school.
right, no, but it's
Yeah.
going to be rebuilt.
right.
So when you have to bring it up to code, when you guys do your feasibility study, you'll need to talk about that.
Yeah, good point. Okay, again, thanks for doing this.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Board of Water Commissioners' recommendations regarding the Dewitt Elementary School. And it doesn't have a date on it. We should probably issue it with a date of tonight, today's date.
Yeah, so you should have a date
If
on
you could, when you print it, Jen, you should print the date, today's date.
Thank you.
tonight's date.
Yeah.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor, say aye. Yes, aye, unanimous. So we will post this on the website, and maybe Why don't we have, does it make sense to have X number of copies available in case anybody really wants?
I
a
think there
hard
should be
copy?
Yeah, we'll make sure.
I think there should be 50 copies.
Okay, 50 copies, why not? So
Gotcha.
this is important, and then if people, we don't have enough, we'll go to the website. Excellent, okay, thank you very much, that's great.
Someday I want to buy a copy where the copy's double-sided.
We have, and they just don't scan very
You can do
easily.
that. Do a double sided,
Yes, I will.
can you do that?
Mhm, absolutely.
All right, next
I
item
want one to
is
collate.
source water protection, enabling legislation, test well, et cetera. So I'll give you a quick update of this. I know Tom Camberry is still working on the test well issue. He's being held up, I think, by the town DPW staff. And again, I'm not blaming them. They're very busy, but getting survey and elevations.
He
Do you know
actually
more
just met,
about that?
yeah, he met on the first and they took some marks and then, Brett, boy. And the town surveyor met out there with them. They took a couple points on Mariner Circle. So they should be all set right now. Yeah, they gotta get together and they're gonna have to start doing some measurements. I think John's gonna run out with Tom one day
Okay.
and take some measurements and everything.
And our intent here, by the way, is just to get better clarity on direction of flow. We have
Yeah.
pretty good maps, but they're not perfect. This one won't be perfect either, but it'll be better.
Right.
And I think it's one thing I'm a big fan of, knowing where our water comes from.
Yeah.
Might be a crazy idea, but I think it's really important. And so that's the mission here, and Tom, I think, is on this. And this goes to source water protection. If you don't know where the water's coming from, it's hard to protect it. I think we have a pretty good idea, but this will help us get better. So my update, as I indicated earlier, is I did reach out to Dan Santos and Rob Steen at the Barnstable DPW, because I think I reported it here maybe a year ago. I had a conversation with them. At that time, the CWMP, which is the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, was, I think the plan for this area was 20 to 30 years for sewer.
Yeah.
I had spoken with Rob Steen and suggested this idea of IA upgrades. At that point in time, he said thought that was a good idea, we should pursue it. Because of the time frame and, you know, at least it's something that could get done.
Right.
In the meantime. When I spoke to him last week, it sounded like there was potential to expedite the timeframe. And the thing that would help expedite it is money. So another option on the table would be that somebody, and he was suggesting possibly the district, could contribute money to the town to try to get us a little higher up in the schedule. So that's what I wanted to bring to the commissioners tonight, to see if that's something we want to pursue. Because right now it's in the 20 to 30 year time period. And I will add that the town is still trying to identify a place to put the treated wastewater. And they are also trying to identify how we're going to pay. Those are two questions which some people think are really important that have not been answered. I know when you are doing a development of a site, project development, you can't go too far without having those things identified. So the town, those are two things, important things that the town still needs to resolve. I think they'll do it eventually.
Well, but if they ran a sewer down 28 to serve our upgrading an area, which is fairly dense subdivisions, they like sewers in dense areas, not less dense areas.
Right.
That makes sense. But you would have to pump it all the way to the Hyannis treatment plant.
Well, one option that was reviewed as part of the CWMP is going to the Joint Base Cape Cod. That is certainly an option. I think it's an expensive option. It's pumping a fairly long ways uphill forever. And as I tell my students, carry around a 5-gallon bucket of water for a little while and get a sense of what the energy commitments are. And this is not for 10 years or 20 years. This is sort of forever. So yes, you can do it as long as you have unlimited money. And don't care about energy expenditures. I am one fiscal conservative, and I'm also one that is concerned with energy expenditures. So I'm not sure that's an ideal solution. It's something that was identified as a potential if you don't care about the cost or the energy considerations.
Right, and they're looking at the same areas that any water department that needs water right now out there. And is looking for a place to get water and put in a test well, they got the sewer department right beside them. Putting in saying, can we inject, the treated water here? So he told me that, Steen told me that, he said, every place you guys look at for water, he says, we're looking at, we've either been there before you, or we're coming in afterwards. He
And
says, to try to, for places to inject water out, to put, or for different stations and everything.
Thanks for mentioning that, Chris, because I've had that conversation with you a couple times. As I said, my understanding is, please, if anybody knows more, correct me, but the town does not have a solution yet on where to put the additional treated wastewater.
Right,
They've identified 3 or 4 options which haven't worked out, so they're still struggling with that. One option that Rob mentioned to me on the phone last week is, and he asked me to actually bring it to the water commission, so I'm glad you mentioned it. Would we like to take the treated wastewater back into our aquifer here in Methuen? And that's an extra expense as well, of course, pumping it back. I told him that I personally didn't think that was a great idea, but if we think it's a great idea, we can certainly pursue that. Because they're having issues with figuring out a place to put it. So one option is to treat it and pump it to Hyannis, treat it, and then send it back here and find a place to discharge. Anybody interested in that?
I thought they were gonna discharge it up near the golf course, Hyannis Golf.
That was one of the options considered and looked at. My understanding is there was a lot of pushback from West Barnstable. Might have been a political thing, I'm not sure, but I think that's still an option they are evaluating, but it was not a easy, let's propose it. It sounds like it's still not, something that's been resolved, but that was one of the options considered.
So right now, any new hookups, they're still just draining out of the lagoons and Hyannis, is that where they're going?
Yes. And the other thing, just factual, there is a lawsuit pending from Conservation Law Foundation that discharge in Hyannis is a violation of the Clean Water.
Right.
So, no comment on it, except that is happening. So it's a difficult
And the
situation.
CLFs,
Yeah,
yeah, their solution is to pluck it off of the cable.
well, Falmouth is now considering an ocean outfall. Because their sewer project, same thing.
Yeah.
Like sewer's a great idea, except we don't have a place to put it. And we do have an Ocean Sanctuaries Act in Massachusetts, and I'm guessing they're gonna get very significant pushback on pumping it into Vineyard Sound. So it's sewering seems like a nice, easy solution, but it's not. And it's super expensive. But in some cases, it's necessary. So, anyways, that's the latest update I have. I guess, back to the original point, we could try to expedite this if we're willing, if we want to consider, providing some financing to get us up on the list a little bit, so we're not 20 to 30 years out. I don't know if there's any interest in moving that discussion. That's something we could talk to.
for extortion, and we don't know where it's gonna go.
Bribery.
Well, they're trying, as I
Yeah.
said, they're struggling with how
Yeah.
to pay for this sewering project, so if some of it can come from us, then that can help expedite things.
So we still don't know if we can subsidize wastewater treatment, whether it's at somebody's house or in the Hyannis sewer facility. That still may need legislation.
Well, that's the last thing on the agenda, and the last thing on the agenda here is, we did, as you know, met with Kip Diggs. That is something that was suggested, I believe, by Fran Parks, that we pursue legislative change. I think she made a very good suggestion, and I am still in favor of her recommendation that we do that, even if it's not for this project. But my view is, as I said at the last meeting, our legislation was written when?
1935.
1935, a little bit before EPA's source water protection came into being in the 1990s. And my guess is we're gonna be wanting to do more source water protection, so if it's true that we can't protect the water now, we should amend the legislation to do so. So I would like to pursue that regardless of whether we do the septic system thing. I think we need to have more than 1930s legislation to protect our water. So I guess we have a couple of decisions here to make. One is we want a further discussion about providing money to the town to do the sewer, and secondly is do we want to pursue the legislative update change? So any thoughts on that or motions would be welcome.
Well, the language that we drafted or has been drafted includes public and private processes, facilities, properties. So it's not just fixing septic systems. It also talks about enhancing wastewater treatment systems. So that includes the town sewer, I would think.
Yes.
So I don't think we have to change this language anymore. We just have to get buy-in from the district voters that this would make sense. You know, the time to do that is next spring when these things are being put together as part of the warrant.
I guess my question is, do we need a district vote to,
Well, that's what we talked with Kip about. He's looking for guidance. What is the public consensus? And my point was, you're not gonna know that unless you expose it to the most people. And the only time we do that is when 50 people come to vote on things at the district meeting.
well, what's the pleasure of the commission? Oh, yes.
So I met with you, David, as well about amending the Canadian legislation for another group here to it.
Right.
My understanding is you don't necessarily have to wait until the annual district meeting. If there is a special district meeting between now and then, you could add this to that special district meeting. So that's an option if you guys are ready to go on.
I don't
But
think,
you have to do that in order for him to then take it to the state legislature and say, the district would like this. And you can read back on the one that was done in 1949, for the war memorial and the library. That was the last time it was that, well. And so it starts at a district meeting, it goes to the state legislature, it comes back to the district meeting to be ratified, and then there's an additional article that they would put in and say how much money you would want to go towards that project with them. That's my understanding of this stuff.
so, I don't think this rises to the level of its having a special district meeting on its own. If they could piggyback on some other special meeting, fine.
That's what I was saying, if there is a big one in regards to the school, that would be a time, if that happens before the annual district meeting, that may also go up until, who knows?
So maybe we don't have, or maybe we shouldn't wait until the spring. Maybe we could have a public forum regarding this through maybe the civic association or something. Or a public hearing here.
As opposed to a district meeting.
Well, in addition to, but I think in preparatory to it. If I was Kip Diggs, I wouldn't accept any consensus opinions unless the district voted on it as a non-binding thing. And that's what we did last time with the Historic Society. And it didn't receive the approval, but it was a vote of the district. I mean, there's no other way other than, sending out ballots to every homeowner to get some kind of opinion sometimes.
Well, point of order, it did receive the approval of the voters at the annual district meeting. There may have been a commission, or a commissioner who did not approve on it, but it passed the annual district meeting for a non-binding, amendment, non-binding article, which you have to go through in order to get it to the state.
So the historic one did pass or something. Oh, that's okay. That's not what I was remembering. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
Well, do we have a recommendation, a motion on this?
Well, maybe you could work with the civic association to see if they have topics. If they're asking for people to come in and discuss in the interim, I don't know.
And then gear it up for,
I mean, we could also include the affordable access policy. So, which has been changed since the last public session about it.
okay, well, I will contact the Civic Association to see if they might sponsor such a meeting. Ken, if you could remind me of that, that'd be great. That sounds like a good next step. Why don't we segue to the affordable access to drinking water? Any updates on that?
Well, it's just that we haven't had a chance really to review my suggested changes. We, based on the good amount of comment that we had last spring. So the main difference is that I've been persuaded by the testimony that making the first tier free doesn't make sense. I do think it should be made more affordable. I think it could be cut in half. And then the smaller amount made up at the other tiers, the higher tiers. And Jen's done some work on that. I thought also, Jen, that you were looking at maybe only above 100,000. We could do it. Increasing just the top two tiers to offset the reduction in the first bottom tier, but the rest of it I think is still, you know, speaks for itself. That I think that everybody should have some ability to access water at a very affordable rate, and the more you use, the more you pay. I think that's a well-established principle in a lot of economic theories. And we've got lots of good data here for, you know, we can absorb that offset very easily. If too many people put in wells and we lose revenue, hooray, we win. Well, you know,
We're paying
we'll
to
have
treat less
you know,
water.
we'll have to adjust the rates again, but I think that this is a way to indicate that, you know, we did jack up the rates.
Yeah.
And we did it for a reason, to keep up with the cost of the operating of the district, of the department. That we're now subsidizing the taxpayers of the district with the water revenues. And so to me, that makes sense to give some kind of a relief at the bottom end. And we're not gonna means test people, we're just gonna give it across the board and float all the boats, so. That's just the way I've been thinking about it in recent months. I don't think this needs to go into operation until the next fiscal year, which is next July. So we've got plenty of time to expose this to, you know, to more comment. And for the commissioners to think some more about it as well.
David, any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think taking 3 off of the table and reducing the bottom end is a smart move. And yeah, as you said, it's a question of just economics. And as we continue to jigger the rates, we're not here to make a buck. We're going to break even. But this is for the total accounts, I'm coming up with about 2,300. And the growth projection for the district, we don't have a lot of upside, right?
It's not a whole lot of new subdivisions.
There are some that are on wells that are going on to public drinking water.
Yeah.
We have
Oh,
5 or
there's 2 of
6
them down
in
on the Main Street, just went in, there,
Right.
one was a well there and the other one's a new house, I believe,
right?
down there by Oregon.
The two houses.
You know, I know you said that it's limiting more people putting wells, you know, great, but private wells has the ability to lose control of our aquifer from 2 points. They're pumping water, it doesn't go against state pumping standards. And the other thing that I think is more critical is they can act as point sources of pollution. And the controls of those private wells compared to, you know, our wells, the town wells, isn't as good, the safety around it. So the more holes you put in the ground, potentially the more point sources of pollution they can have. So, and I know why you're encouraging it, and I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying that's a worrisome side effect.
I don't think we're seeing new wells for domestic use, we're seeing it for irrigation.
Hey, this is not drinking water,
Pardon?
not drinking, water,
Yeah,
just irrigating lawns.
no, well, there are irrigation wells to an extent. Yeah, and somebody decides, you know, I don't need any water. What prevents somebody,
Health regulations. They have to,
Board of Health.
they have to get a permit from the Board of Health to use it as a drinking water well.
but I mean, people need permits for a lot of things that they never get. And, you know, that private well can act as a point for pollution. And I've seen it in other areas where, you know, somebody inadvertently or, caustically, put something near or in that well,
Right.
then it's the same act, whether we're pumping out of it or Joe down the street is pumping. It's the same act. And instead of it leaching down to the ground and getting there over time, you know, that straw goes directly into it. So, and it's just a worrisome thought, maybe.
Okay, well, thank you.
I have one point of feedback on this policy. If we are looking at adjusting our rates again in the way that we bill for, I'd like to consider getting rid of the minimum use billing cycle and tier and bill for water use. Now, we can drop the rate on that first 10,000 gallons to $2 per thousand, which accomplishes the affordable piece of it. But that extra billing cycle is done in a different way in the billing software that we have. It sometimes overlaps with the due date of that minimum use bill to the excess use bill that's going out, especially when there's penalty bills in there. I get people that overpay and underpay because they get 3 bills in the mail right in a row. So if there's maybe some buy-in on that topic
Sure.
or concerns on that
Makes
topic, I'd like to maybe talk about incorporating that in there.
I've always wondered why I get 2 bills,
Right.
one for 50,
Right,
it tells me nothing,
right.
and I get the Whopper.
Yeah, and we could go to reading quarterly. It went pretty smoothly with this other one, but that's gonna affect those higher rate tiers too. If we start billing quarterly, you're not gonna get into those higher
I
rate
think we should,
tiers.
why can't we include the basic, the
Right,
the meter fee
yep,
in one of the bills with the usage? I mean, it's.
right.
Just,
So get rid of my feeling would be to get rid of March and October. If you want to build that minimum use as a set tier in the January and July bills, great. If you want to just bill for whatever they use up to that first
right,
10,000.
the only reason we went to 4 times a year was because I believe finance wanted to see income coming in at a more regular pace.
Right,
Yeah.
and that if the district
It's
can't
become,
handle that
it's become
$92,000.
kind of a bookkeeping nightmare with overlapping like it is because
I don't think that's a compelling reason to me.
I
no.
don't either,
I mean, there's plenty of money to slosh around here to pay bills.
yes.
Right.
Even if, you know, if they have to do a better job of holding on to some of the money and for lean times when we haven't done a billing and.
The minimum use bill runs are $92,000 if the district can't be flushed with $92,000 for a
Yeah.
3-month period.
Yeah,
then
I
we're
think
in trouble.
that's a big consideration
Yeah,
to lessen the impact on bookkeeping and staff and mailing costs. Everything else.
exactly.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah, and now that we have the ability to do electronic delivery of the invoices, we can also meet that condition for the CCR, which always went out with the March bills and had to go out in March bills to meet the time of DEP, so.
Yeah.
I think it opens up some new options for us that I'd like us to take a look at.
So,
Thanks
Mr. Chair, I
for
think the bottom line is that, this and the enabling legislation could be part of the focus of a information session, whether we do it here, we end, or with the civic association.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You know, we get better attendance when it's the civic association, so.
Okay, let's plan to do that.
But we should also plan if the fallout from tomorrow said there's going to be a special district meeting to deal with
Yes,
this.
probably.
Get on that
Get a
agenda
vote.
as well.
We can tie into that too. Good. All right, good suggestion, Jen, thanks. All right, let's keep moving here. Yes, we're on to approve lien warrant, John, you get, and also the leak adjustment report.
The whole second half of this agenda is me. All right, the lien warrant, so here we are in August, getting ready for October tax bills. We started in May with 37 accounts that had balances that were 365 days or more past due, for a total of $20,843.22. We collected 24 of those accounts for $8,916.63, leaving a lien going to the town of 13 accounts, $11,926.59, which will be collected with their tax bill. Here is a list of the official lien warrant that requires all 3 signatures of the board.
If you sign, Scott, you have to write chairman. After.
Okay. Right.
Okay. Did we vote this, John? We didn't vote on it. Let's call a vote.
Motion,
I move that we approve the warrant for the water liens.
wait a second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Go to the town tomorrow.
Leak adjustment,
4 of them. So, on your thinking caps back to February when we had that fun cold snap overnight. I have 4 residents that we've been working with leaks. 3 of them associated with that one, none. The first one in front of you is from the treasurer for the Katuitt Bay Shores Association. They had an issue with the line that supplies their tennis court and sports complex area. They have addressed it. They found 2 different leaks. They've had it repaired. The very last page will show you their average consumption. The consumption associated with the leak was for 200. So this is actually going back to the bills that we sent out in January. So back to the end of the last billing cycle. They did pay it in good faith. Should we award them adjustment, they will have a credit on their account. They used 204,000 gallons because of this leak. Their previous high usage is only 44,000 gallons. They're responsible for double of that. So they would pay for the first 116,000 gallons, and we could potentially provide relief on the remaining 116,000 gallons.
am I correct in reading this very quickly, that this is an irrigation system issue?
It could or could not be. They have a pit,
Common area.
and the common area that they have like a sink in their little clubhouse. So it's not even really a club. I think it's like a snack room or something like that, in a changing room.
They do say that the irrigation system had been impacted by a root system,
Okay.
and there was 2 leaks. in
Yeah,
the
I wasn't
irrigation
positive where it was in, but I do know that they do have a pit that's out by
system.
the road that runs over and feeds the line. It's inside. I believe where the irrigation is kicked off before it gets there. Like halfway to the that comes off the pipe coming out of the ground then, because I used to have a backflow device on it and I used to have to test it over there.
This has been, we've had this come up a number of times now, we're
Right.
related, that's why I asked about the irrigation system, so that when we have the public education thing again, I think we should let people know. This is another problem with irrigation, is that not only is it extra demand from the system, but it also is a source of leaks. And I think we're gonna, at least my suggestion is we move towards pushing that liability on the homeowner, if they wanna have their systems done.
And we have that policy review on our agenda.
Right, I know.
And we do need to amend it to address however you want to amend it for
Any thoughts on
leaks.
this one?
Well, we don't have a rationale to deviate from our long-standing leak adjustment policy just because it happens to be irrigation. until we change the policy, we are kind of hamstrung here. We can grouse about it if you want, put the grousing in the minutes, but I'm gonna move that we approve this leak adjustment.
Second, discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Next one, Jen?
Second one, is my neighbor on School Street. Seasonal home, although they are here frequently. Again, this was that February 4th, water pipe burst in the basement. They were on it. By the 8th, they had, they had somebody shut the water off. They were on it by the 8th. They had plumbers in, repaired the leak, included statements of their bill that they did not receive any compensation for the lost water. Again, it was their usage, their previous highest usage, 32,000 gallons, doubled to 64,000 gallons. The water associated with this leak, 115,000 gallons. I do believe we went out and read too, right after it happened, to isolate that the water was used for the leak. I don't have that note.
That was that Saturday, we had the 0-degree temperature.
Yes,
Yeah.
I had a hair appointment that morning and they had no hot water. I'm like, don't worry, I already washed it. It was freezing. So that would adjust their bill. They would be seeking relief in the amount of $817.05.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, so this is the property on the corner of Falmouth Road and Main Street that has some office space in it. During the Arctic snap, they had a pipe burst underneath in their Cape Cod cellar that went unnoticed until somebody used a bathroom that isn't used very often, and the water pressure was very low. To the point that it washed out their foundation, like they had to do some masonry work in the foundation of the building. It has been repaired. The mason has repaired the foundation. They have, the pipe was rerouted from the area of concern into a crawl space. They provided for some heat to get to the pipe. They have taken some steps to ensure that this isn't something that's going to happen again. And also made a statement that there was no insurance claim filed for restitution of the cost of the lost water. It's a little harder to do the adjustment on this one because they are a seasonal irrigation user. But as you can see by the sticky note on the front, we did go out and read the meter when we were notified that the leak had occurred. They didn't notify us right away because they didn't know that we had a leak adjustment policy in place until someone advised them of that. So we took what their highest off-season usage was and used that as the number to double. And that's how I proceeded. Chris and I talked about that and we thought that was the best way to proceed with the calculation. This was a big bill. They used 348,000 gallons in the period. They had used 290 of that prior to turning on any irrigation in April. So we know that the majority of it was from the lake.
Yeah, I have a question before we vote on this one. I'm just looking at the, is this the existing policy with your note on how we
Yes.
change it?
Yeah.
It does say, at the discretion of the commissioners, an alternate calculation can be applied given the following consideration. Number one is leak is not associated with an irrigation system. So we do have something in here now.
So we added that amendment. I think you probably remember there was
Right.
a woman over on Old
Yeah.
Post Road that had an issue with a fountain or family here. And it was the year with our highest usage was an anomaly year. So we agreed to use a 5-year average rather than.
I guess my question is, like, we do have it in here to some extent.
To some extent.
Why, if I'm asking the question, Commissioner, why can't we use that as part of our decision making if it's in our current policy? in making decisions.
All of this.
We
is
need
at your
to clarify for everybody who appears to be here.
Says leak is not associated with irrigation system.
Yeah, that's,
Should it say leak is associated with irrigation system?
When we put that policy in place, it was, the issue that we were addressing was whether we used the previous highest usage or a 5-year average, because this woman had family in town 1 year and there was abnormal use at her property. And we said, okay, it's not associated with irrigation. It is household use or household leak. And that was when you had the discretion to use a 5-year average. But all of this policy is at your.
well, I don't want to take this out of
discretion,
order. I just happen to be looking at this like we're discussing
Mhm.
this, but why don't we proceed with the decision on this current adjustment? Is there a motion on that?
Which one are we on? 4681?
4681 Falmouth Road, Corey.
We're being asked to give relief of 5781.
That's correct. So he would be responsible for double his highest off-season usage. It's not irrigation.
Let's table this to next time, study some more, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, well,
This particular one?
this one confuses me.
All right. Let's move on to the next one, Jen.
And then lastly, we have a resident on Mariner Circle. Sorry, let's make a quick note. Resident on Mariner Circle, also a seasonal home, had some catastrophic damage from that freeze up. But part of the issue with this one happened with the electric company, where when the power, I guess there was a loss of power when it came back on, only half of the electrical panel came back, and that was an issue that they researched with Eversource, and that's what they were told by Eversource. Because of that, the heat didn't come back on, and that's why they encountered this freeze up. They are taking several steps to ensure, I mean, they've got pictures here, their entire house was damaged with this flood. Partial power came back on, the boiler stopped working. They have contacted the insurance company. They're receiving minimal payment from them and it's not covering the water loss. They plan to have a wireless smart water valve device installed on the service and coming into the house that will contact them if there's an abnormal flow of water and actually shut this valve down. They already have the meter. They will have it installed when the plumbing repairs and heating repairs are completed. And then if I go to their adjustment page, you can see that I mean, even their high usage is
I
20,000
would recommend that
gallons.
we approve this.
Second.
Adjustment. Thank you.
Further discussion?
I have one point before we vote.
Yep.
We've been collecting a lot of email addresses, is that correct?
Correct.
You think you have more than half?
I think I have about 900 plus.
That's great.
It's pretty good out of 2,300.
You know, an anomaly like that, February, Saturday morning, I went to take the dog out and she didn't want to go. Yeah. We might be proactive and tell all of our winter residents or just anybody we have emails for, hey, you might want your neighbor to go check your house. We can't check all the houses, that's not our job, but
Right.
particularly, that's just so bizarre and extreme, and it only lasted 24 hours.
Yeah.
But look what it did.
Yeah.
It's got 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And it's tough because we don't know who is a winter person, that doesn't call us to have the water shut
one
down.
thing I will say.
We know the people that come to us and say, shut it down. We know they're a season.
Right.
There's so many people out there that say, no, I paid the guy next door to come over, twice a week to check my place out. I
And I
give him
will say-
$200 a month to do it.
But it would just be good customer
Yeah.
service to it's an email.
And we have the notification system now to do it. I will say the one proactive thing we do is, especially now with the new database, we have flagged anybody that's one of our seasonal turn on and turn off people. So we have a way of comparing, hey, we flagged this as a seasonal person and they're still set to active or they're set to inactive. So we know who has or has not
Yeah.
turned on or off for the season. We do proactively reach out to those people.
We have a motion in a second. Further,
No, that's just a point of information. So,
okay, all in favor? Say aye.
uh,
Thank you. Okay, that completes them, Jen?
That's the four leakage.
All right, so on the general policy, leak adjustment policy, I do have a suggested change. I'd like to see if we can take care of this quickly and easily. So do you have a copy of the, everybody have a copy
There
of
should be, yep, the last page of it.
leakage rate number one? I'm trying to make this a simple edit, but may not be doable. Let me try this. So the last paragraph, or the next to the last paragraph, where it says at the discretion of the commissioners. What if we were to delete number one, that says leak is not associated with irrigation system, and insert the following? Leak adjustment relief will not be provided if it is determined to be associated with an irrigation system.
well, I don't know, I don't really. Again, this is at our discretion, but I feel. These were put in. When we were allowing them to be put in. Could they be shut down in the winter? I don't know how they work, frankly, but.
Well, okay, so when I started on this research project,
I know.
I had a lengthy conversation with two or three, I forget, irrigation companies, and I learned a lot. They were very transparent with me and told me a lot, and one of many things they told me is these systems need to be inspected and maintained, and they're often not. Unless somebody, pushes them. So if we were to do something like this, communicate it. It might push the option of, hey, this sounds, it seems to me, if I'm a homeowner of one of these things and I hear about this, I'm gonna do one of two things. I'm gonna call my irrigation company and get it inspected, which is what the professionals told me they should be doing.
Right.
Or get off the system and put in a private well. That's what I would do as a homeowner if I hear about this. And isn't that what we want?
Would you consider a provision if they provided proof that their system was inspected at the beginning of the season?
That's a good, I would accept that amendment. That's a good idea. Yeah. I mean, I'm starting with a pretty basic statement here. I'm happy to have it modified, but I think we should have something in here because we keep discussing these without a policy.
I have to just go back, just to give an example. Many years ago, a woman over on Katua Bay Drive called me up and said, I can't use that much water. And I went over there and she sat down, asked me if I wanted some tea and coffee and everything else and sit
I
down.
love our
And I said to her, I said, no, let's see what we can do. She goes, oh I'm so lonely. My husband just died, and she's going on and on. I said, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna start up your sprinkler system. So she went out with me, started it up. First zone was the front yard. And the plow had taken it off and three things just went flying straight up in the air and out into the road, and it was just running down the road.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I went, well, there's your leaks right there. And she goes, well, how would I know that? I said, well, it comes on about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. She goes, I don't know now. So, I mean, there's points, what I'm saying is your discretion and stuff like that, there are certain things out there that happen. And I was just like, you gotta call the company, you gotta get them over. She goes, I didn't even know I had to call the company. When do I gotta do that? Like you had to winterize it. I'm like, I hate to see what the rest of the place looks like. She had no idea even to winterize or anything like that, and it was just.
I remember 8 years ago or so, I was walking the beach in Oregon in the morning and. In the middle of the winter, and here's a irrigation head popped out, spewing water out into the dunes.
I mean, there's little incentive.
You sent me pictures in the morning saying, this house here, you should probably see if you can contact somebody. because it's just going straight out in the morning like that and everything,
And I
yeah.
think we've been, by raising the water rates, that's an indirect method to get at this. This is more direct. This is like, I mean,
Yeah,
not me, the irrigation people told me this is a problem.
yeah,
So I'm just listening, right?
yeah,
They said
maybe,
that
maybe it's something to put it out
People
there
don't
too, yeah.
maintain these, and they don't have any, unless somebody is saying something, they have no incentive.
Right.
Let it leak, who cares?
Okay, so if you change this policy. Are we gonna send letters to everybody who's using more than 80,000 gallons and
I think. we
say,
could-
we're assuming you have an irrigation system. If you do, these are the principles.
I think
upon
we could
which-"
add this to the meeting we're gonna have at the,
Yeah.
with the civic association. I mean, I think most people know that we're on the irrigation. thing.
Oh, yeah,
Right,
that's
so that's
very
not
definite.
news. And this is just another, this is like, hey, just to let you know, we're still thinking about this, we haven't forgotten about it. Your people, your professionals told us a problem, not us.
Well, let's bring this to the people and say,
Yeah.
what do you think's fair? I mean, if somebody has a broken irrigation system,
Well,
should all of you be paying his bill?
I don't know.
Right.
I
No,
don't
I-
think we should go that far. I don't think we, but they don't, we set the rates.
No, but I mean, but the policy is that we're gonna eat it as a district, if you have a broken
That's the
irrigation.
current policy. Like, don't worry about it. If it leaks, who cares? That's the current policy.
But I mean, somebody has to pay for it. in a sense.
Yeah, well, they are paying for it, right? The other people.
Well,
Is it my imagination, I mean, we just put it on two that were not irrigation systems that failed, but were cold snaps. These were houses that were unattended. And,
A lot of them, yeah, yeah.
and I know someone in town personally who on two occasions has flooded his basement completely in the middle of the winter. With the fire department reporting, they see the washer and dryer floating past the windows. And you know what? He continues to heat that house in the winter while he's not here because he believes it's good for his plaster.
Yeah.
And he's now, I think, on two burst pipes.
You might have got a leak adjustment once, but you don't even get one.
Get one, yeah. But it
We only get
seems-
one, so.
it seems we should be going after the non-resident.
I think I know what you're talking
winter
about.
people.
yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about,
Talking
because I think I went there for the second time and tried to find a number for
But one person on here said they're adding something that will inform them if they've got a leak.
them. Yeah, that was a great.
And maybe that's the push we give and as well. I mean, irrigation systems, I don't know anything about them. I'm gonna imagine they're made out of plastic and not copper. And they've got to be purged because I hear the guys at compressors purging all of my neighbors every fall.
And they blow them out every fall, yeah.
But yeah, if PVC, it's gonna split, if you look at it, funny. But I wonder if we should be also sending out a message that if you're gonna leave your house unattended in a cold snap.
I think in the old days, like my parents always shut down the house in the fall.
That's what-
Opened it up in the spring, turned all the systems back on in the spring. Nowadays, people wanna heat these unattended houses and they keep it at 68. It's
Cause we
crazy.
might wanna come down,
Huh?
cause we might wanna come down on
Yeah.
a weekend.
Unless you forget to pay your oil bill.
Or you say, keep the,
Goes up.
keep the dampness away,
Yeah.
you know.
Let's go back to the, I don't know if I should make this a motion. I'm not gonna make it a motion if I don't really support it, but I'd like to amend the, policy we've been talking about.
Well, I think
With
it needs,
something.
I think it needs some more thought, so. Why don't you think about it for a month and come back with a suggestion? I'm not gonna support a blanket prohibitions on adjustments for irrigation, because I think people do have them, put them in good faith. It's not always because they haven't intended it. There are cold snaps.
What do you think, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we should expand it from irrigation, and if we've got a leak policy, we should be very clear and say that. You know, either we make the decision, if it's irrigation related, we're not gonna give you, we're not gonna rebate. Or if it's unattended winter pipes.
Yeah.
You get one and the second one, you're in the hook. And we advise that you go get an alarm system or whatever, will prevent it from happening.
We gotta get a handle on who has irrigation systems, and I think it's based on gallons, isn't it?
Used to make a note when I was reading,
Yes and no.
when I used to actually go out and read. And everything, I used to write down, has sprinkler system, has sprinkler system, so some of them do have SS written on them in the corners, and she has some notes for people that had them.
So,
But I-
so if only for education purposes, so Scott says, you know, here's some principles. Maintain it, compress the air through it in the fall, whatever the principles are.
Mhm.
Let's be more proactive to these people instead of just waiting for them to come in with leak adjustments. I mean, it's.
I mean, I have some people that have irrigation systems that used 48,000 gallons. I have other people that have irrigation systems that use 120,000 gallons or
Yeah.
300,000 gallons. So
I know the
you
house,
can't just say it's.
the house in
by
front of
volume.
me has been unoccupied
Mhm.
88% of this year, but they have an irrigation. system.
$157 water bill.
All right, let's, we'll continue, just keep this on the agenda.
You send me an amendment and I'll
Yeah.
circulate it.
Well, I like the one I gave tonight, but I'll work on it. Matters not anticipated by the chair, are there any?
I just got one quick thing, I should have brought it up on my report. I did, send out, an updated, thing to be looked at, handbook for Warren Rutherford to look at. Supposed to have a conversation with him tomorrow at 9. He wants to talk to me for about half an hour. If I get back that stuff, I might send it out to everybody just to look at.
Just the employee handbook.
Yeah, the employee handbook, yeah, with the changes on and updated stuff, and, I mean, some of it still says we had 2 water tanks from, or 3 at the time. She updated some of the language behind it and everything,
Is this
so.
something
That's
you did in the past?
The guy.
Or
Before
not?
your time,
Before my time?
Vic was involved with it.
You might have, yeah,
And you were talking about irrigation.
Yes.
See?
You know, and I think we gotta, people that have, them, we gotta encourage them to maintain them well. And, you know, the flip side of that is somebody wants a green lawn, they can't have an irrigation system. So you see the 3 sprinklers out there with the 3 hoses from the house, and you see it before you go to bed, they're running, and they're running in the morning still. You know, so they're pumping water for 8 hours to 10 hours. And I don't know that there's an easy answer to the whole thing, but I think we could do, you could do something to encourage people, if they have an irrigation system, to maintain it. And if they don't, if they're using hoses and sprinklers, you know, to use a water cutoff, a timing mechanism, those things are what, $25?
Yeah.
You can hand those to people that want them, but, we wrestled with this years ago, and I don't think there is an easy answer.
Well, we're making some progress, at least getting more wells put in. I think that's progress. I don't think it's affecting the aquifer. I think, if you put a well in next door here, that's not affecting our sauna contribution to our wells. It's just water that's going into the ocean anyway. Let them pump it. So,
Okay, any other public comment? Thank you for coming, really appreciate it. Please keep coming, thank you very much, appreciate it. Nice to see you, we need to pick a meeting
I
date.
have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
No,
okay.
yes,
I just am looking for some guidance from you on the conservation letter that I
Oh.
circulated.
I'll look at that this week.
It's wordy. I am happy to cut it down, but there's a lot of good and important things in there, so I'm just looking for guidance from you, who you want me to send it to, and if you want to make any changes for the letter.
I'll look at that.
is that something that would go out to everybody, the public, or?
Well, that's up to you. If you
Well,
want me to send it to
I'm
the
just thinking
over
if-
200s, the over 500s.
Well, if we do that, we could put a little message in there about irrigation systems as well, right? Well, it's related to conservation.
Yeah.
It's the high users, right?
I do have one other question. Do you guys think I should read this verbatim tomorrow night?
No,
No.
summarize it.
Let's
Make it,
I just summarize
make it into bullet points.
Okay.
Just say it's available in the back there and the handout.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
Next meeting date,
next meeting day,
20th is the 3rd Wednesday.
September 20th, Wednesday. Sounds good, it's good. Senator, Commissioner, all right.
hybrid here,
Yes,
okay.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Everybody ready, great. Jen, Chris, thank you. Thank you.